Hello, hello! Let's talk about the Behemoth solo raid. So, a few notes to talk about before I start. One, my Ein is not ready for solo raid, so as a result, I am not using her. I'm going to mention where this unit should be used if you do have her actually properly built. Two, I don't have Grave. The reason I don't have Grave is, to put it simply, I'm trying to cheap out on this. I'm trying to basically potentially get her from free pulls and save 200 golden ticket for what is most likely going to be Little Mermaid on New Year. So, as a result, don't expect to see Grave in here. For those who actually care about the spreadsheet, I will also mention this. Grave will not be on the spreadsheet until I have my hand on her. My hands rather on her, because there is the whole overheat mechanic, and I want to make sure I fully understand how that works, because right now it's kind of glitchy. Even if you're mid reload animation, it will actually kill the buff apparently in some ways. So I'd rather just actually play around with the character and familiarize myself before I actually make judgments on how I feel about what the skill distribution should be, and everything in between with that. So, expect her to be a bit more delayed as far as when I actually do add her to the spreadsheet. Now, let's talk Team 1. I have two variation of that team. The main reason why I have two variation of that team is because the first version of how I cleared this, how I did damage in this, that I'm going to show you, is very skill dependent. I know that on a phone you are not going to be able to do this whatsoever. So I don't want it to be too daunting for phone players as well. But I will say this boss is not very phone friendly in general because of how hectic the boss goes. With that said, I'm going to show a more chill version of that team. However, here's the key problem. My two problems. One of them is that I do not have a good Cinderella or a good Summer Anise on my main. They are okay, right? They are just okay. They are not insane in any way, shape, or form. The reason why I mentioned this is because there is a difference of 1 billion damage between the two teams, and it's not purely because of that one unit change, okay? I'm not going to try to clickbait or whatever on this. I'm going to say it as it is. In reality, if my Cinderella and my Summer Anise were on par with both accounts, my main would be probably doing 3 bill damage, 3.1 bill, whereas this one does 3.4, almost 3.5, okay? So it's not that big of a damage loss to do what I'm doing with the second team. Just understand that. So, let's talk about this. I am going to talk more in depth about how the machine gun is a piece of shit with team number 3, if I'm counting the second version of this team. But essentially, this boss will shoot twice, and then it's going to throw garbage at you, and then it's going to transition. So, a few things to keep in mind. Cinderella heals herself with her skill 2, because it increases her max HP. And Rouge also heals your team with some parts of her kits by just increasing max HP during the duration of the burst. The reason why that matters is effectively it means you're not completely healless, which makes this fight, as long as you do it fine, mostly just easy to deal with. However, the problem with this team is if you're going to use Exia as a DPS like I am here, because I do not have Ein, ideally you use Summer Anise as a support, and then you use Ein and Cinderella as your actual burst 3, because Anise still does quite good damage regardless of if she's bursting or not, and she boosts Ein as well as Cinderella. Now, if your Ein is not good enough, however, which is, I want to say, a fair bit of people that are not very endgame in campaign, because Ein is borderline required for the mirror container boss fight in campaign. Then you can do something like this, or you can just use the 5th slot as Ein as a burst genner. I don't really recommend it. Or you can do what I did with my second team, or you can do this if you have a decent Exia. Now, Exia, the main problem is that she needs 5 stacks to boost her attack by 140%. She boosts the attack of every electric unit on the team as well, so it does boost Cinderella as well as Summer Anissa's damage. The reason why I mentioned this is that, effectively, Exia is very hard to deal with because you have to do full charge to keep her buff up every 5 seconds. The reason why that matters is because at the end of the day, you cannot full charge a rock. It does not count for buffs. You cannot hit a QTE with it to charge it. So keep that in mind, because it means that when you're full bursting, you just charge a hit while targeting the rock, and then you release the hit on Behemoth afterward. You're going to see me do this a lot during this fight. I'm just making sure you guys understand this, because if you don't do that, you lose a lot of damage. You will lose the 140% attack boost. And also, every time the boss disappears from the screen to do a QTE, your buffs are going to run out, and that's why. So, the way the boss works, it throws 2 rocks at you, and then it's going to throw missile, then 2 rocks, then Gatling guns. So yeah, thankfully, because of Cinderella's decoy, she's able to just heal herself through increasing her max HP, but also she will deal with a fair bit of these. As you can see here, I'm doing full charge, then I'm going to do another full charge. I target the rock so it breaks. It's pretty useful. And yeah, here you can see it again. It's the same logic. Because the Gatling gun are not as much of a threat, because you get Rouge's heal, and Cinderella also just deals with a lot of the mechanics. This fight is fairly fine. It's just dealing with Exia if you're trying to use her as a main DPS. That's going to be very difficult. Here, if you wanted to have a good shot here, wait until she slams into the floor to burst, so that you have a proper chance at dealing with the QTE. It just makes it easier, you have more time to deal with it, and then, as well, it lines you up for the next burst. The reason why that matters is because you don't have a proper rocket launcher to deal with all the circles, and the QTE is rather fast. So, it's a bit of a problem. So you have to time up your burst as a result. Once again, as you can see, this just lines up, and then you can just do the QTE just fine. But yeah, pretty simple after that. It's just doing as much damage as possible and delaying your burst so that it lines up with the QTE, so it's a lot easier to deal with. Another thing worth mentioning, because I'm sure there's some people out there that wonders, what's the point of doing the QTE? It just makes so that the lightning lasts less long. So instead of getting hit 6 times, you will get hit 12 times if you failed the QTE, which is a fair bit of damage. It's going to be more relevant on the 3rd team I'm going to be showing, because that team is a no-heal team. However, right now, because Rouge is getting healed, even if because Rouge is giving heals, rather, I don't need it nearly as much. But it's still worth keeping in mind, because it is a fair bit of damage at the end of the day. And then the fight ends. So this is the harder, more sweatier version of this team. For reference, this took me 40 minutes to get right. It's very difficult to just juggle Exia stack, and there is most certainly a learning curve. So just keep that in mind while you do this. And this one is a lot more chill. So, Same team, but Exia is replaced with Noise. Why Noise specifically? Two reasons. You want a taunter that is more consistent than Cinderella when achieving the Burst 3 stage. And at the same time, she is a Burst Gen character because she is a rocket launcher. That's two. Three, Summer Anise actually buffs her, so she does not have any downtime during Burst. And also, she heals herself, so the Gatling guns, when they hit her, it doesn't matter. She will simply heal herself over time. As for the rest, it's very much the same thing as last time. As I said before, if you have an Ein that's properly built and you want to do more damage, you'd rather burst with Ein here instead of Summer Anise and have Summer Anise on the 5th position, just there as a buffer. At that point, I think that's like in the middle, as in like, it is harder than with Noise, but it's not that much harder. It's probably fairly easy to do. I believe you can probably squeeze an extra like 500 mil, probably break 4 bill with this team if you actually get that right. As you can see here, very good to generate burst. This is more of a lazy team, but at the same time, it's just a more chill team. So, you can do that. Another thing that you can keep in mind is that you can just target the machine guns themselves in the direction of where the rocket's coming from. The reason why that matters is that Summer Anise, being a shotgun unit, will shoot at it whether you want it or not. So you'll be able to potentially break it as a result. This attack is completely blockable if you have a shield, by the way. So if Crown has a shield on everybody, that's good enough. You do not need to care. And here, as you can see, you know, it's the same logic as before. You may want to delay your burst a little, but if you have Noise on the team, it's not a problem. That's another reason why Noise actually works pretty well here. I believe you will see this on the second time the QTE pops up, because I'm going full speed ahead. And here, as you can see, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm taking a lot of damage, it doesn't stop me. It doesn't do anything against me, really. But yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. You can see it here. So, if you have a rocket launcher, it breaks everything but the middle part. So, the idea is you shoot in the middle with your rocket launcher, and then you finish it off with Summer Anise. Why not Cinderella, you may ask? Because Cinderella has reloaded by that point. And the problem with that is that she has to wait until her attack is charging again, and therefore you will not be able to deal with it. As for the rest, it's very simple. Just do as much damage as you can, really. And that's it. Another thing you can do, by the way, just a little details. During the water shield QTE, you can delay it a little longer because then you have more time to do damage. Because you have 4 units doing electric damage all at once, it really doesn't matter if you wait a little longer that way, because if you were to do the QTE really fast, what ends up happening is you're just thrown into the QTE hell again. So, as a result, just delay it so you can do more damage. As you can see here, I got to do more damage as a result. But also, if I delayed both of them, I would have just had more time to do damage again. So I would have maybe squeezed an extra 40, 50 mil damage. Just something worth mentioning. But now, let's talk about the hardest one, which is this one here. So this is the hardest team of the bunch. If you're talking about just skill-based and also just account-based, this is going to be the harder one. If you are not using Exia anyway. Exia just makes it very difficult because you have a lot to pay attention to all at once. But here, it's not that you have a lot to pay attention to, it's that you are taking a lot of damage, and you don't have heals. Now, one thing worth mentioning, my Red Hood is core 3, so she's the main target. So when I say Red Hood, just keep in mind that's whatever your highest attack unit is at the time, okay? It might not be Red Hood that's being targeted, it might be Maxwell, because you have a lot more merge on her than you do Red Hood or something like that. I'm mentioning this right now because, guess what? the target will change based on who has the highest attack. So whoever has the highest attack, you want to cover here. You want to basically, if you have a really cracked Maxwell, you're going to be able to burst here and one-shot the Gatling gun. If you cannot one-shot the Gatling gun, then this is important for you. You effectively have to cover with your highest attack unit, so Red Hood in this case. Because Red Hood is going to get hit by the Gatling gun twice in a row, and then the boss is going to throw these. So, the reason why this matters, here I actually had to smash them down because they were going to destroy our cover from full. This was not perfect. Ideally, it's targeting Moderna or Litter, and they're not mid-reload, or even Mary if she's not mid-reload, because effectively you can just swap to whatever character it is that's being attacked by this, and just cover the attack, and then you just avoid that damage. If you can't do that, you have to shoot it down. Red Hood is the best one on your team to do this with. So yeah. Now, I will also say this, before we actually move to Phase 2. If you do not get to survive that easily, use Helm. Replace Maxwell with Helm, because the vamp effect that you will get from Helm should be enough to keep you alive. I've not tested myself, so take it with a grain of salt, but I am 90% sure that's going to be good enough. Because, being honest, I lose one character here. If she had any kind of heal, she would have lived. Okay? Just know, though, that you'll have to play perfect. So, there's that to keep in. At least if you don't have Helm. If you have Helm, you might be able to take a few hit here and there. It's going to be fine. Especially on your highest attack unit, because she is just going to full heal anyway through Helm. So here I am not bursting. This is on purpose. The idea is that you want to go RH, Mary, RH, and then break one of the machine gun. Here, it is very imperative that you hit the left one first, your left, not the boss's left, to make so that you hit the rock by not even targeting the rock. Red Hood has a very, very large caliber ammo for whatever reason. Here you want to cover this. But yet, Red Hood has a big caliber ammo. Ideally, if you are struggling with damage, you just cover right away after your burst ends, because the machine gun will happen and you will take damage. You want to be at as high HP as you can. You want to prevent taking damage as much as you can. After the machine gun round happens, then you're completely fine. You can effectively burst here. Jesus Christ. You can effectively burst here just fine. And you won't be attacked on Red Hood again. And here you just charge Maxwell. The ideal thing you want to do is charge on the body and then finish off the part with the blast. The main reason why I mentioned this is because that way you can hit the part and the main body, which doubles your damage you're doing with Maxwell. So obviously it is better. As for why Maxwell is on this comp, you get a lot of Pierce damage. That's it, really. And also she boosts Red Hood's damage. Here, you do not burst until you see the part spawn. When the part spawn, you just do the same thing as you did the first time, but this time with Litter. So yeah, it's very simple. You just do damage as much as you can to the part, and you then cover again. And once again, you just have Mary dealing with that, and then you have Maxwell breaking the part, right? And then you just deal with the mechanic like normal. Here, I should have held my burst, to be honest. I should have held my burst because I would have been able to do more damage that way. Ah well, it is what it is. Cover this. On this team, you have Litter, so you're able to deal with taking a lot of damage to your cover at the end of the day. So, this is just it. You want to do that as much as you can. Here, you should be mid-burst, so you should be fine. Again, if you see yourself run out of burst just before this happens, delay your burst by an extra like 3 or 4 seconds, and that solves the problem. Yes, you lose maybe a potential burst at the end. Who cares? You actually get to live. Fail the QTE, you die. Here, I believe I waited a little. Um, it's just to give me enough time to potentially just line it up just right. Red Hood, thankfully, does not need to line up for this attack to deal with the circle. Because Red Hood is just able to break the circles like this. So that's worth mentioning. As long as you hit the like middle point between all three of them inside the first circle, the explosion itself of the sniper round is basically going to hit all of those. So you basically, first of all, do triple burst gen, but also, more importantly, you're able to break the circle regardless of if you're in full burst or not. As you can see here, we took a lot of damage. The thunder is completely like undodgeable, uncoverable, so it is going to be a dangerous thing in general. And then here we just burst in time again. The usual. And yeah, after that, it's just a repeat. Again, it doesn't matter if you're bursting, you just hit in the middle and you're fine. And here, as you can see, yeah, it's very tight. As I said, Mary dies, but she's also not merged. Maxwell and Litter are merged. Maxwell took 8 shit at the start of the map, to be fair, from the little rocks, the slow-moving tracking rocks. So that's why she's solo on HP. Modernia is limit break 1 or 2, so a good reference. I think a lot of people have her at like more merged than mine at this point. If you don't, you might actually die here, but more likely than not, you'll be like very low HP, but slightly hanging in there. So yeah, as usual here, you cover. You burst as soon as you can because honestly, it doesn't matter. It's going to throw you in QTE hell anyway. So, as I said before, you can delay the water QTE to be able to do more damage during your burst. That is something you absolutely can do. It is up to you. Just know that if you do delay, you might not need to delay for the QTE itself, because at that point, the QTE might already be lined up. Keep in mind, Mary is the one that's likely to die, because I don't believe many people around here has gotten any merges on her. Understandably, considering she's a collab unit, collab characters are usually just fine at one copy, and that's it. So she's most likely the one to die. You can just go Litter, Red Hood, and just burst on the last burst as a result. So yeah, that's it really. With that said, let's talk about Team 3. Funny enough, yes, this is the third hardest one, because I am sweaty. So 2 things you can do here. The sweaty way and the non-sweaty way. The sweaty way, the non-sweaty way is to just burst with SBS, and then you wait. You then burst when you end the phase 2 transition to burst with Alice, and use her similarly to how you used Red Hood in the last boss, in the last fight rather. Where you focus on breaking the parts while the rocks just auto breaks. You can do that. It is in fact a strat you can do. However, then there's the sweaty strat that allows you to potentially squeeze an extra burst at the end, which is just, yeah, you just focus on killing the Gatling gun here. You do double damage shooting at it and the main body as a result, so you can actually break it in time, as you can see here. And these you can just break with Alice to just burst fast. And because the boss is no longer on screen, what you can do is just full charge with SBS, and then, you know, because of skill 1, you will still attack the boss, since that's most of her damage. It's small, it's really small, but it works. However, this part becomes a lot harder as a result. So here, you want to charge your strike, your next shot with Alice. And then shoot the machine gun in the main body. I believe the idea is that it hits the main body, the part in the main body again, effectively, which basically translates to 10.5 times more burst than you would normally. The idea is effectively being that on full charge shot you get more burst based on the base charge damage you do. Because of the way Alice works, she has 350% max, so you get 3.5 times more burst. You hit 3 times. So what ends up happening is, well, you can see it right here, right? I literally just generated like 40% of my burst bar right there in one hit. So, as a result, you can actually burst in time. If you don't do that, this truck will actually hurt you. You won't be able to make it in time. This is a strat you can use in general to basically have more burst. As you can see here, that was very clutch. So yeah. Keep in mind, rocks are going to be a problem regardless. This team is not exactly well equipped to deal with them, because outside of burst, your damage is miserable. Here, you did not even need to focus on the rock. You can just hit the machine gun on the left. The reason why you can do that is simply because you're just going to pierce through the rock into the machine gun. Again, it's very similar to what you did with Red Hood. And here I should have focused on it more, but I was focused on breaking the part instead. Because the flying things were going to Alice, you can't just cover because then you don't generate burst, so you just shoot through it. It generates a tremendous amount of burst anyway. You might take some damage, but you can just lifesteal it back with Alice if you're too low. And if you're not too low, then Naga is just going to heal you back to full anyway. So it's not as risky as it looks. Yeah, as you can see, you have plenty of time for this one. I had a full reload in the middle of that. Again, if you have Tia's shield up, you don't need to cover this. There is no point in covering this, because the shield is just going to take the hit for you. So here, if I was smart, I would have hit the middle portion and then burst, but I was not smart, so, you know. I don't know why I charged there. I think I was just delaying the next burst. Because Tia is very bulky, and by the by, little tip: if your Tia is dying, run the endurance cube on her. Either the cube that increases damage reduction or the cube that increases defense. I believe the one that is damage reduction is better. The tempering cube, I believe, if my memory serves right on the name. This should make it a lot easier for her to face tank, so you can actually just focus on doing damage. This is the cube I always use on Tia personally, because I'd rather be able to do more damage than worry about my taunter. Here, as you can see, this is why having a rocket launcher works. Yeah, after that you just shoot. It's that simple. You've done basically every mechanic at that point. Well, except this, but you can hit like 2 circles anyway on this. Here I didn't bother to cover because, again, I had shields. And there you go. So now let's talk about the 2 last teams. These are fairly easy to work with. First one is the shotgun team. This one, you do not burst with Alice first. You actually want to keep it after you actually take damage, you know, considering she's a healer and all. And yeah, try to cover these as much as you can. Now, the best part about this team is because you have so much attack on Guilty through her own personal skill 1 or skill 2, whichever the one is that duplicates the attack of the second highest attack unit. But you also have a really high attack buff in the burst with Bunny Soda, so they are going to share the Gatling guns, which makes it a lot easier for you to just, you know, survive with just Bunny Alice providing healing. You might even be able to take a few rocks. In general, though, you might just want to hit the machine gun on the left and right, depending on where, depending on what actually needs to, or depending on which side the rock is coming from, because you are going to just passively break the rock doing so. Again, similar to Alice, similar to Red Hood, it shouldn't be new at this point for you guys. You will need to cover these, by the way. In general, because the problem with these is that they do a metric fuck ton of damage, and Alice does do a lot of healing, but it's not instant. The reason why it's usually fine with the other teams is that you had shield, you had healing, and you know, my Bunny Alice is like 444 and not OL'd. So obviously I'm kind of fucked already. But unless you have a really good Alice to heal yourself back up, and the whole reason why I even have my Alice at only 444 is just so I can see how it looks for players that don't want to put a massive investment. If you wonder why I actually waited to burst here, I wanted to line it up. And you kind of have to with the shotgun team. Line it up to do the circles here. So yeah, that's why. But yeah, so shotgun units are not going to passively break the rocks whenever you run out of burst. So it's a lot more dangerous here. Sometimes you'll have to take hits. That's just how it is. But like, be careful on your cover here. Jesus Christ. Why am I stopping on all of the flashy ones? Because, as you can see, you have a limited amount of HP, and you don't heal that much constantly, so just worth mentioning. Alice will heal you over time, but it's not perfect. But yeah, after lining up the first one, you just line up every burst afterward. I'm pretty sure. If you don't, again, you can just delay a little more. As you can see now, everyone's right as rain. Whenever Bunny Alice gets the burst, it's a lot easier. If you see that you have a lot of HP like this, just take the hit. Just take the hit. It's a lot easier for you. But yeah. With that said, that's the other team. Again, shotgun is a lot easier to deal with. It's just a matter of Alice healing a fuck ton. And having a decent Tove, obviously, but also just delaying that one QT is the main thing you have to be wary of. Because your bursts last longer than normal, it's why it matters. Now let's talk about Team 5. Team 5 is very simple. Because you don't even have to cover more often than not. Blanc heals for so much anyway, so it is what it is. This is also a team I did better on my ult than my main, but again, the Scarlet has like... I want to say like 115% elemental damage. I spent 6 rocks on this lady. I don't know why electric is so nice for me on the ult. It just kind of is. I'm not gonna complain. So here, as usual, if you are mid full burst and you have plenty of time, just constantly shoot at the machine gun part. You're gonna break the rock by default because it's going to crossfire into you between the two of them. And then the one on the right, you're most likely gonna be close of running out of burst. If that's the case, just play it safe, man. Just play it safe. Just focus on it so that it dies. I don't even do mechanics on this team for the most part, because there is no point. The rocks are the main one, because they do a lot of damage. They just do. But outside of the rocks, I'm not really worried about mechanics. Here, as you can see, and this is just relevant in general, if you are out of burst, just hit with Ludmilla, swap to Scarlet, and then hit it as well. This is okay. So here's one thing that's actually important with this strategy, though. You need aim assist maxed out. If you have aim assist maxed out, you can actually have an EK, tell it to shoot at something, swap to a different Nikke, tell it to shoot at it, and both of them will focus on it. Because the way aim assists work, it basically traps whoever you're telling to shoot there, because if they try to move out to shoot somewhere else, it simply doesn't work. Because they just are locked in on whatever you told them to shoot. As long as, you know, the aim assist locks on to whatever you're shooting, you're completely fine. So as a result, you can just have Ludmilla and Scarlet shooting at it without being in full burst. This is true in general also for Shotgun Team. If you struggle with breaking the rock with only one, you can just target it, shoot it, swap to a different shotgun, target it, and then you have two people shooting at it and it will break, no matter what. So yeah. But yeah, this is mostly fairly easy, as I see. As I said, you just have to worry about this a bit. Even if you fail some of the rocks, you're completely fine usually, because at the end of the day, you just heal so much. Like, look at Scarlet. Scarlet is fine. Like, it's not even close. So here the first QT is usually fine. However, the second one, I believe, I completely do with Scarlet. So one thing to note before we even get there, I'm not going to talk about the rest because it's pretty self-explanatory. Two things. When it jumps in the back like this, and it turns red, swap to Scarlet and force the reload if you don't see her already reloading. The reason why is because to do the circle, Ludmilla actually struggles, whereas Scarlet has an easier time because of the 115% attack increase. As you can see here, I covered and I lost cover. That's completely fine. It's not a dead run at all. You can simply just face tank the rest. And here, as you can see, I'm using Scarlet to deal with it because I was not bursting, right? So what you can do is, again, delay the burst. That's option 1. And then option 2 is just do it with Scarlet. However, my Scarlet on my ult has a fuck ton of elemental damage. I don't know if this applies to circles. Can't really test it right now, considering solo rate is down. So I'm just going to say this right now. If you struggle with the circles like that, you'll have to delay, and you'll have to full burst a little later to make up for it. But if elemental is not a problem, or it's not considered, all I have on Scarlet is like 23% attack and 49 ammo. So it is very achievable. As you can see here, I ran out of ammo, I think, at the right time. But if not, I would have forced the reload here, because these circles are really hard to do without Scarlet. Or without a full burst. Both of them are fine. And yeah, after that, it's pretty simple. You just DPS as much as you can. And that is the Solar Raid. Hopefully this was useful. This was my second recording of this one because my 51-minute first recording had audio problems. So hopefully this one doesn't. Well, you guys will see pretty soon enough anyway, or you guys will have known for a long time by now. But yeah, as far as damage is concerned, this is my ult, and this is my main. I just want to point out once again, in case people are skipping to this section of the video, my ult has a way better Cinderella and a way better Summer Anise. They are damn near perfect as they are on my ult, and on my main they are just not. If I actually had the exact same Cinderella and Summer Anise as my ult, I would have been able to do 3.1 or 3.2 bill damage effectively. So, yeah. Once again, I hope this has at least helped somebody. And with that, have a nice one, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one.